Chief Executive, Arsenal Football Club, with us this morning on BFM Spotlight. Ivan, before life began at Arsenal Football Club, you were a commissioner in Major League Soccer in the US, on the other side of the pond, as it were. You helped set up the sport over there. Just give us a bit of insight into how soccer has developed over there, and how, well, in fact, whether in any way the British Premiership football teams can learn from the MLS experience.
You gave me a nice promotion, by the way. I wasn't commissioner; I was deputy commissioner.
Okay.
I think there is a lot that can be learned from the US experience. The United States is, as a football or soccer nation, is in a developmental
in the first
phase.
place, you should have just talked to them about using football, not soccer.
Yeah, I know. Well, soccer is an English word. It's not an American word. But
it is, isn't it?
But obviously in the States, to distinguish it from American football, they use the word soccer. It's in a developmental stage still in the United States. But as a sports business environment, the United States is very sophisticated. So there's this unusual combination in Major League Soccer of a sophisticated business and a developing sport. MLS has been very, very successful. I mean, I'm incredibly proud of what they've achieved in that environment. They now have 19 teams all across the US and Canada, 13 brand new soccer stadiums, either built or in development, all across North America.
The teams as a whole, they generally make money as opposed to the Premiership.
They don't make money, but they lose. Some make money, some lose money, but the amount of money you lose is at an acceptable and sustainable level. You can be viewed as an investment. It's not a bottomless sink.
So since the 70s, Ivan, when the days of Pele and Franz Beckenbauer came and crossed the pond to the US to ply the trade and promote the game, now we've got potentially Frank Lampard coming next year, and Sir David Beckham, not yet knighted but known affectionately as, promoting the game. Talk about, spend a bit of time and tell us about the psyche of the Premiership footballer. With his bling, his Bentleys, and his little cocoon of inner self-centeredness.
Well, the game has changed a lot. It used to be that footballers would spend a lifetime with their football club, and that sometimes still happens, but it's more and more rare. I think what we've got to realize now is the amounts of money have gone up and up and up. You have, in many cases, young individuals who are clearly have talent, surrounded from an early age by potential agents, people to represent them. They have money when they're 16, 17 years old. I mean, I don't know what I would have done in that environment. It's quite difficult in the modern era.
That would be an understatement, wouldn't it, though?
Yeah.
I mean, you're worth a few million quid by the time you're 23 years old.
So think about that. If you or I had that kind of money at that age, I mean, it's quite difficult to keep your feet on the ground. I think the successful footballers tend to be the ones that have a very realistic understanding of where they are, what they need to do to improve.
But there seems to be a bit of a dichotomy, Ivan, because you don't see Spanish, La Liga players falling out of nightclubs at 5 in the morning, whereas in England you do.
Well, I think there's a lot of attention in England. We've got a very intensive media environment. Are you
saying that in Spain they don't?
No. What I'm saying is I don't think the issues are as big as they're made out to be. I think if you took a cross-section of 23-year-olds in society and looked at their behaviours, and then you look at Premier League footballers, I think you'd find that Premier League footballers, in relative terms, lead... I mean, it sounds amazing given the media portrayal.
We're going to use the word monastic, right?
Monastic is perhaps a little bit strong, but they do lead. It has to be a very disciplined existence. You cannot stay at the top of the game if you're leading a life that's full of nightclubs and drinking. It just doesn't happen anymore.
Right? And apparently, Ivan, you like David Beckham.
I like David Beckham very much. He's, it's surprising because. There's so much glamour and hype around him. There's almost a David Beckham industry. But at the centre of all of that is actually somebody that, when you speak to people in football, is very well respected by his fellow players and teammates and managers. Somebody who loves the game and who I have always found to be unfailingly dedicated, polite, humble, I feel like I'm eulogising him a little bit, but he
despite
really
him not being ever an Arsenal player.
Even though he was never an Arsenal player, I have only good things to say about David Beckham.
And the other thing, and staying on players and ex-players as well, Ivan, Patrick Vieira, who was an icon, who is still an icon and legend at Arsenal Football Club. When he went to Man City to be director of football and football development, that must have, been a bit of a kick in the proverbial,
No, it really wasn't. We have a very affectionate relationship with Patrick Vieira. Our fans love him and always will. And Patrick will always have an emotional attachment to Arsenal. That doesn't stop people from pursuing their careers, their next stage after football. And Patrick has had an opportunity at Manchester
because
City.
That role at City was created for him, whereas at Arsenal, you never really matched that role for him.
What we try to do in our environment is to keep things as simple as possible. We don't like to overcomplicate our decision-making processes. We don't like to add too many different elements into the environment.
Not that many cooks in the broth.
Not too many cooks. So that's something that we try to focus on, keep things simple as much as possible, not just in terms of the management side, but in terms of everything we do. The less complications there are, the better we feel we're able to function.
And, Arsène Wenger's been there since 1996, Ivan. He's, 60... My maths are terrible. 62 this year, right?
I think so, yeah.
Yes, and that's the thing. He's not going to be there forever, and he is quite a unique character. He's the main chef in the kitchen, right? Mm-hmm. As you're saying. Does that make it a little bit delicate, though? The time to come, and at one point, does the board say, "Hey, Arsenal, we're running out of patience here. Mm-hmm. Either you deliver some silverware this season, or there's the door."
Well, let me first say, I was at the training ground and Jens Lehmann was there. One of many players, by the way, that come back to Arsenal because it's a special place. And when Jens says we're going out to play a game, everyone on the training ground has to go. So we went out and we played in a...
Including yourself, because you are a forward player.
Yeah, I enjoy playing.
And you were a forward.
Yeah, I was a forward. But anyway... Arsène was playing. He is in great shape, better than you. So he has a lot of runway ahead of him. In terms of our relationship with Arsène, I think it really works well because what happens in a lot of football clubs, which is really understandable, is managers are under such short-term pressure that they make short-term decisions. I don't blame them for that, but they are worried about their job, and their time horizon tends to be less than a year. Which
is unfortunate, because
which I think leads to bad decisions in football clubs, because they don't have to live with the consequences of their decisions very often. And that means that the decisions that tend to get made are not necessarily the best for the development of the football club. What Arsène has done really successfully over a long period of time at Arsenal is put the football club ahead of his own interests. At the same time, and made the right decisions for the club, at the same time the board has always given him support. And I think that's been a really productive relationship.
Well, support and patience. Notwithstanding 7 years coming to 8.
Support and patience. Well, it really is a glass half full, glass half empty situation. So, yes, we can talk about 7 years without a trophy, and I fully accept that that's not good enough at Arsenal Football Club. At the same time, it's not like we've fallen off the face of the map. We were the third best team in England last year, and we've consistently been at the top of the game over the last 15 years. We're one of 3 clubs in the world that have qualified 15 consecutive years for the Champions League.
So you've got Lucas Podolski, you've got Olivier Giroud, and looks like Robin's going to be leaving. I mean, more chance than not he's going to be saying sayonara, right? So does that give you financial leeway, Ivan, to buy another big player?
Well, look, we always use the resources we have. Without commenting on Robin's particular situation, we've got publicly available accounts. People analyse them. You can work out, how we run the club. It's very transparent. We use all the money we have to reinvest in the team. So we don't just spend the money because it's there. We spend it because Arsène Wenger believes in a particular player or a particular need of the team, and we're very disciplined about that. We've used that very well over time. In terms of we look at the team at the moment, we actually have a good, solid squad. Now, you can always improve in any particular area or add more options to the squad, but it's a delicate process, because one of the things we also believe in is the development of football players. So let me give you an example. 2 years ago, when we opened the season at Anfield, Arsène Wenger played a young kid who was not ready for prime time, if you like. It was a tremendous display of confidence in a young player who was still really in a development phase. And that young player made a mistake in that game, by the way, which ended up costing us a goal. But that young player is Jack Wilshere. Now, Arsène gave him an opportunity. I think a lot of managers would have said, listen, let's go and spend some big money, get somebody in who's ready, who's the finished product. And that's just not the way we do things. We've got a young player who's come through our system. We give them faith, we give them confidence, and rightly or wrongly, that's the way we've built this football club over the last 10, 15 years, and we've been tremendously successful with it.
Lucas Moura, the Brazilian attacking midfielder, 19 years old, rated at 35 million pounds. Man City's in the race, Inter Milan's in the race, and a couple of other, in fact Real Madrid I think is also in the race, along with Manchester United for his signature. But Arsenal are not. Why?
Because we have Gervinho, Theo Walcott, Rio Miachi, I could go on and on. We have wide players. Lucas Podolski can play wide.
But he's not the kind of player that you would not necessarily seek, because you buy players that are interlinking, right?
We do. We look for players that interact with each other. So our whole system of play is very much team play. Arsène always says it's not about the individual players, it's about what happens between them. And we do an awful lot of work in the training ground as well, in terms of movement of players, so that when I play the pass, I play it to a certain place so that you can then play the pass to a third player, and the three of us are all thinking the same thing at the same moment. And so that's how we think about players. Those are the types of players we sign, and that's how we develop players. Somebody like Oxlade-Chamberlain, for example, a year ago, nobody was following Oxlade-Chamberlain outside of Arsenal particularly. Yeah. But we picked up a young, talented kid that we think has a fantastic future in the game and can develop in our system, and that's where we're focused. So again, it comes back to, we don't sign players just because they're big names or just because they're out there and available. We think very carefully about the development of our team over time, and we look very carefully at the young talent that we have. That's why young players, good young players, want to come to Arsenal.
Ivan Gazidis, Arsenal Football Club Chief Executive, BFM 89.9.